All plants are not natural plants from the wild. And what I mean by the wild, I'm speaking on remote areas that are primarily grown from nature versus plants that was grown in more domestic areas like farms and particular landscapes. A lot of people have the misconception that plants are just plants and that they are not different from each other regards to nutrition, when in fact many plants were never part of nature and they were made by men to forcefully have nutrition whenever they wanted. So the question will always lead back to why? Why would human beings go from having natural food growing by nature to wanting to forcefully plant hybrid foods that are accessible to them anytime? But we have to look at history. Now, we don't know everything from Batum to Batum. However, we do know that there were hybrid plants and that there were natural plants. Farming, for example, has been around for approximately 10,000 years, according to what we are told. But this earth is much, much older than 10,000 years. Which means there's a high possibility that farming was completely different over 10,000 years ago compared to today. Remember, this earth has been around for more than millions of years, which makes 10,000 years look like a very small fraction of time. A man by the name of Gregor Mendel was a German biologist who experimented on plant hybridization. He experimented on hybridization so much that his laws about hybridization became a scientific inheritance and became well known in the 1900s. He formed the basis of the new science of genetics, which influenced more plant scientists to so-called improved crop production through plant breeding. However, like I said earlier, it still leads to questions to why. What was necessarily the reason for tampering with Mother Nature in the first place? But just to add, plant breeding actually began in the 1700s. Let's use a common plant everyone generally knows and has eaten before. For example, corn. According to the National Institution of Health.gov, some 9,000 years ago, corn did not exist. The ancient peoples like Mayans, for example, encountered a wild grass called Teosinte. Teosinte was the original corn before it was called corn. Teosinte is referred to all the wild species of zea that are native to Mexico and Central America. Teosinte sows its seeds widely. The corn we know as today was crossbred between the Teosinte kernel and the maize kernel. The maize was a very small plant that only grew 25 millimeters long. Yes, you heard it. The original maize was actually extremely small. The Olmecs and Mayans grew maize along with quinoa. However, the Europeans who migrated did not agree with eating these indigenous foods because of their religious beliefs. And because of this, later plant breeding became more doable for these European settlers. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Corn wasn't the only hybrid plant that was influenced by Europeans. Majority of the foods today we call vegetables are also hybrid plants, and that they are not native and not the food that the indigenous people were eating over 10,000 years ago. We have to ask each other, how do we allow ourselves to be miseducated for so long about our actual nutrition?
I went to Minnesota. I asked for books that was related to the subject of agriculture. And guess what I found? That everything you find in the supermarket was made. They have 666 varieties of apple. They have 32 varieties of cucumber. Rice, they have about 25 varieties of rice.